At her wedding, my daughter placed my picture at the entrance with the words, "No entry." That cruel gesture from the very child I thought would always be my pride and joy cut me deeper than I could have imagined. Before we go any further, if my story has found you, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to see just how far my words can travel. Instead of staying, I turned around and left, walking away from my dreams of a happy family. But just 3 hours later, my phone lit up with 73 missed calls. Her betrayal had somehow spun into chaos. The sharp blue glare of my phone sliced through the cozy glow of my reading lamp. The buzzing against the leather armrest was relentless, shattering the calm January evening I had carefully built around myself. I fumbled with the device, my reading glasses catching the harsh light, and the newspaper crinkling in my lap. "Dad." My daughter Emily's face filled the screen, her excitement so bright it almost pulsed through the pixels. "I have incredible news. I'm engaged." My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. Behind her I caught glimpses of an expensive apartment, marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering New York skyline. "Sweetheart, that's—" I began, but she cut me off, thrusting her left hand toward the camera. A diamond sparkled brilliantly, scattering rainbow flashes across her flushed cheeks. "Look at this ring, Dad. Isn't it gorgeous?" Before I could respond, a man's face leaned into view. Tall, sharp jawline, dark hair styled to perfection. His smile looked like it belonged in a toothpaste ad. "Mr. Miller," he said smoothly, "I'm Jason Hart. I promise your daughter will be the happiest woman in the world." "Dad, I'm so happy," Emily chimed. "Tell me what you think of Jason." I forced myself to match her energy. "So, tell me about him." She practically bounced as she explained. "He's a cryptocurrency investor, Dad. He has big dreams. Jason's into blockchain startups, NFTs, all kinds of things." Jason cut in, his voice calm, practiced. "The market's been unstable lately, but I've diversified, tech, renewable energy, even traditional stocks for balance." Something in the way he rested his hand on Emily's shoulder felt more like control than comfort. His eyes darted away from the camera every few seconds, as though he was distracted by another screen. Even his shiny watch seemed posed, more for show than function. "When's the wedding?" I asked. Emily squealed, "March 15th. Can you believe it?" Jason found an amazing venue. The Waldorf Astoria in New York had a last-minute opening. 2 months. They were planning to marry in just 2 months. "That's awfully fast," I said carefully. Jason's smile tightened a fraction. "When you know, sir. Besides, Emily deserves the wedding of her dreams, and a venue like this won't wait." Through the screen, I watched him absently twist a gold pinky ring, a nervous habit that cracked through his polished exterior. His other hand never left Emily's shoulder, his thumb moving in small circles that felt more controlling than affectionate. She leaned against him, glowing. Jason's been amazing with all the details, vendors, flowers, everything. I hardly have to worry. That should have comforted me. Instead, an uneasy chill settled in my stomach. "Well, I look forward to meeting you in person, Jason," I said, doing my best to sound warm. "Likewise, Mr. Miller. Emily speaks so highly of you." After a bit more chatter about cakes and catering, the call ended. I sat back in my leather chair as the room sank into darkness again, the glow of my phone fading in my palm. My coffee had gone cold, the newspaper forgotten on the floor. Something about Jason didn't sit right. Maybe it was how he dominated the conversation while pretending to be respectful, or how his expensive clothes looked staged, like a costume rather than a wardrobe. 13 restless nights passed after that video call. Then Jason phoned, asking for a man-to-man meeting. I agreed, partly out of curiosity, partly because I needed to understand the unease gnawing at me. The cafe in Manhattan's Upper East Side was exactly the kind of place he'd pick. Quiet luxury, marble tables, and the kind of discretion that comes with $50 entrees. I spotted him in a corner booth, looking surprisingly tense despite the perfectly pressed navy suit. "Mr. Miller, thank you for coming. He stood, shook my hand, firm, but just slightly damp, and gestured for me to sit. "Can I get you something?" "Coffee's fine," I said, studying his face. In person, his polished charm felt thin, like veneer over cheap wood. "So, how are the wedding plans coming along?" I asked. He smiled. "Wonderful. Actually, that's part of why I wanted to talk to you." He fiddled with his coffee cup, turning it exactly 90 degrees. "Can I trust you with something confidential?" he asked, his words hanging in the air like a trap waiting to snap shut. "Of course," I replied, even though every instinct inside me was screaming not to. Jason leaned in close, his voice dropping to a hushed, almost secretive whisper. "My investments are temporarily locked up because of some market conditions. Nothing major. A regulatory review of one of my crypto funds should be cleared in about 6 months." He sighed, the sound so practiced it almost felt rehearsed. "But Emily dreams of a fairy tale wedding, and I just can't let her down." I watched his eyes as he spoke. They never met mine, always fixed somewhere just over my left shoulder. "The venue requires full payment up front," he continued. "Flowers, catering, the whole thing. It's more than I can pull together right now without taking massive losses." "How much are we talking about, Jason?" I asked. 50,000 would cover it, he answered quickly. "I'll return every cent by the end of the year, I promise, with interest." He slipped some papers from his jacket, documents filled with legal stamps and financial jargon. "This shows my portfolio value, over 2 million in assets. It's just tied up at the moment." The paperwork looked legitimate, but the way he produced it, smooth and ready, like a magician pulling a card from his sleeve, made my skin crawl. "Mr. Miller, I know how this sounds, but I love your daughter more than anything. I just want to give her the wedding she deserves." He was good. Too good. His vulnerability felt real, his paperwork convincing, and though 50,000 was no small amount, it wouldn't wipe out my retirement savings. "All right," I heard myself say. "But Emily must never know about this." "Of course," he agreed immediately. "It would crush her to think I couldn't provide." Relief washed over his face so quickly it almost looked staged. "You don't know how much this means, sir." My hand trembled as I wrote the check, moving slowly, my pen hovering before the signature. Jason's eyes tracked every motion, sharp and hungry, like a hawk watching its prey. The second I tore the check free, he reached across the table almost too eagerly, sliding it into his wallet with careful precision. "You won't regret this, Mr. Miller. Emily is going to have the most beautiful wedding New York has ever seen." He left right after that, mumbling something about urgent calls with vendors. I sat alone in the expensive cafe, my coffee cold, while well-dressed New Yorkers chatted around me about stocks and ski trips. The phone felt like a stone in my pocket. I should have called Emily, asked more about Jason's business, done some basic checking before handing him $50,000. Instead, I just finished my coffee and went home, carrying a secret that already felt like a mistake. 6 heavy days dragged by after that meeting. I drifted through my Brooklyn apartment like a ghost. The cordless phone never left my reach. The spotless kitchen where I barely ate, the living room where I couldn't read, the bedroom where sleep came in scraps, all of it mocked me. On my nightstand sat Margaret's photo, her gentle smile frozen in another lifetime. I picked up the silver frame, tracing the glass with my thumb. "Truth matters more than comfort," she always used to say. Whispering to her image, I admitted, "You'd know what to do." Margaret had never trusted smooth talkers. She never let charm blind her judgment. When Emily was 16 and wanted to date that boy with a motorcycle, Margaret ran a background check that could have impressed the FBI. But Margaret was gone, and here I was, making choices that betrayed everything she had taught me about protecting our daughter. The phone buzzed in my hand. Emily's picture lit up the screen, those same intuitive eyes she'd inherited from her mom, now clouded by love for a man who might be lying about everything. I called her, hung up before it rang, then called again. "Dad." Perfect timing. "I just got back from the florist." How are things? She chirped. I tried to sound casual, though my voice was tight. How are the wedding plans going? Wonderful, Dad. Jason's handling everything. The band, the photographer, even coordinating with the hotel staff. I barely have to think about anything except walking down the aisle. Every word she spoke dug deeper into me. He was controlling it all, with her money. My money. Emily. I began, but stopped cold. The promise I had made to Jason pressed against my tongue like iron chains. Are you sure you know him well enough? Of course I do, Dad. Why would you ask that? Her tone sharpened just a little, defensive. I could hear her moving around her apartment, maybe arranging flowers or flipping through bridal magazines. Just parental worries, I said. You haven't known him long. 6 months, actually. And when you meet the right person, time doesn't matter, she laughed, though it sounded forced. You always told me to trust my instincts, remember? Well, mine tell me Jason's perfect for me. Perfect. The word perfect echoed in my head like a warning bell. Nothing in life was perfect, least of all people who claimed they were. I'm sure you're right, sweetheart, I told Emily. I can't wait to dance with you at your wedding. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out the leather journal Claire had given me years ago. Most of its pages were blank. I'd never been much for writing things down. But that night was different. I needed to mark the moment. I wrote, February 9th, 2025. Gave Jason $50,000 for wedding expenses. Emily doesn't know. Something feels wrong, but I made a promise. I could almost hear Claire's voice in my head. I'm being a fool. But sometimes being a good father means trusting your daughter's choices, even when they scare you. I closed the journal and slid it back into the drawer. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with its evening rhythm. Couples strolling home from dinner, families heading to late movies, the kind of simple lives I suddenly envied. The wedding was 5 weeks away. 5 weeks for Jason to prove me wrong, or for me to learn just how badly I'd misjudged him. I switched off the kitchen light and carried Claire's photo with me to bed. If I was making a mistake, at least I wouldn't be making it alone. 3 days later, I found myself outside Daniel, Manhattan's temple of French cuisine, staring through the floor-to-ceiling windows at Jason and Emily laughing over champagne. My morning flight from JFK had left me jet-lagged and bleary, but I'd forced myself into my best Navy Brooks Brothers suit, a suit that suddenly felt cheap under the restaurant's chandeliers. Dad! Emily bounded toward me in a flowing emerald dress that probably cost more than my mortgage. Her engagement ring sparkled as she hugged me, her perfume wrapping around me like happiness. Jason rose slowly from their corner table. His movements were deliberate, predatory. His charcoal pinstripe suit looked like something out of a magazine spread. My 50 grand had clearly been put to good use. Mr. Miller, wonderful to see you again, he said, his handshake lingering too long, his thumb pressing into my knuckles with unnecessary force. Please, sit. He positioned himself so that he commanded the best view of the dining room. I took the liberty of ordering wine, a Chassagne Montrachet that pairs beautifully with the seafood. Before I could answer, he was already signaling the sommelier, rattling off details about tannins and oak barrels. I felt like a tourist in my own daughter's life. The menu changes seasonally, Jason continued, not bothering to hand me a menu. But I recommend the John Dory, unless you prefer something more traditional. The word dripped with condescension. Dad's adventurous, Emily said quickly, squeezing my hand. Remember when you tried that sushi place in Chinatown? Mr. Miller, do you still use a checkbook? How authentic. Jason smiled, but his eyes flashed with malice. My jaw tightened. Sometimes the old ways work best. Of course. Though I imagine keeping track of expenses must be difficult without digital banking. He leaned back, draping one arm around Emily. Your father probably remembers when Bitcoin cost pennies, don't you, sir? Jason, maybe we should change the subject, I said evenly. Of course, forgive me. I forget not everyone adapts so quickly to new realities. He turned to Emily with mock concern. Sweetheart, should we explain crypto basics to him, or would that be too much? Emily giggled, actually giggled, as though I were some confused grandparent. The waiter appeared with scallops arranged like art. Jason dissected them with surgical precision, explaining market volatility to Emily, occasionally tossing me a scrap of conversation. You might find this interesting, Mr. Miller, before diving back into jargon that excluded me. Jason, you're brilliant, Emily gushed, gazing at him with adoration. Dad, you're lucky to have him as a son-in-law. When the bill came, Jason made a theatrical show of pulling out a black Amex card, brushing away my attempt to contribute. Please, Mr. Miller, this is on me. His eyes locked on mine, his voice smooth and cruel. I can certainly afford it. Outside, he guided Emily into his Tesla, kissing her forehead with staged tenderness. I climbed into a taxi. Through the rear window, I saw him laughing, the sound rolling into the night like a victory song. My fists clenched in my lap as the city lights smeared past. Something about Jason Hart was deeply, dangerously wrong. That night, I lay in my bland hotel bed until nearly midnight, replaying every smirk, every calculated insult, every moment Jason had made me feel small in front of my own daughter. Eventually, I gave up trying to sleep and dragged myself over to the cramped hotel desk. Still in my wrinkled dinner shirt and loosened tie, I flipped open my laptop. The Wi-Fi password was taped to the base of the lamp. My fingers hovered over the search bar, unsure where to start. Finally, I typed, Jason Hart. The first results looked clean, LinkedIn profiles, a few tech blog mentions, all matching the story he'd told us. Too neat. Too rehearsed. I scrolled further, adding New York to narrow it down. By page 3, something different appeared, a business registration for Hart Digital Ventures, filed just 6 months ago. The listed address? A UPS store. My chest tightened. I tried another search, Jason Hart fraud. The screen flickered, then filled with court documents. Los Angeles County Superior Court. Case number CV20247891. Jason Michael Hart, I whispered. Defendant in a civil lawsuit for misappropriation of funds, identity theft, and investment fraud. My hands shook as I clicked through the filings. The plaintiff was a woman named Rachel Martinez, 31, who had given Jason $180,000 for what she thought were cryptocurrency investments. Her photo showed a young brunette with trusting eyes, eyes that looked alarmingly like Emily's. I searched Jason Hart, Los Angeles victims. More names surfaced. Sarah Chen, $95,000. Jennifer Walsh, $240,000. Always the same pattern. Young, accomplished women, lured by promises of financial opportunities and a future together, left shattered and broke. Reading aloud from a news article, my voice cracked. Jason Hart accused of misappropriating over $200,000. But it was the photo gallery that truly froze my blood. There he was with Rachel, arm around her at what looked like an engagement party. There he was with Sarah at a romantic dinner. And there he was with Jennifer, her left hand raised, showing off a diamond ring identical to the one now on Emily's finger. For the next 4 hours, I became an investigator. I printed court filings, articles, victim testimonies, police reports, everything I could find. The hotel's business center printer churned non-stop while I built a wall of evidence around my laptop. Each document revealed new horrors. Jason had used at least 3 different last names, Hart, Morrison, and Richards. He targeted women on dating apps, carefully constructing identities as a wealthy entrepreneur. Every relationship followed the same arc. 6 months, long enough to build trust, propose marriage, and gain access to money. By 5 a.m., coffee cups crowded the desk, my shirt hung open at the collar, and the evidence covered every surface. Photos of his victims. Screenshots of fake investment documents. Testimonies from devastated families. Oh God, what is he doing to my daughter? I whispered into the stale hotel air. Outside, Manhattan was waking up, commuters grabbing coffee, joggers on the sidewalks, ordinary people with ordinary lives. While mine was collapsing under the weight of fraud and betrayal, I organized everything into manila folders, one for each victim. Rachel's was the thickest. She'd fought him in court for 2 years before giving up. Sarah had tried warning other women online until his lawyers forced her silence. Jennifer had simply vanished from social media. The final report made me sick, a psychological profile from the FBI's white-collar crime unit. Jason showed all the signs of narcissism with sociopathic tendencies, specializing in manipulating family bonds to achieve financial goals. At 6:47 a.m., the first light of dawn slipped through the curtains. Emily would be getting ready for work soon, probably humming wedding songs while Jason hovered nearby, plotting his next move. I picked up my phone with steady hands. The time for silence was over. Valentine's Day morning brought clear New York sunshine through my hotel window. The irony cut deep as I spread Jason's crimes across the desk like cards in a rigged game. Each document told the same story: romance, manipulation, financial ruin. At exactly 7:15, I dialed Emily's number, knowing she'd be awake while Jason might still be in the shower. She answered on the second ring, her voice light, brimming with the joy of a bride 3 weeks from her wedding. "Morning, Dad. Did you sleep well? Wasn't dinner amazing last night?" Her happiness made what I had to do even crueler. "Emily, I need to tell you something important. Are you sitting down? I'm just getting ready for work." "What's wrong? You sound serious." I held Rachel Martinez's court filing in one hand, as if drawing strength from another parent who'd failed to protect his child. "Emily, Jason asked me for $50,000 for the wedding." Silence. "You told me he was a millionaire," I continued. Her voice broke, trembling. "You're lying. Jason would have told me." "Sweetheart, he said his assets were frozen and he needed money for the venue. He made me promise not to tell you." "That's impossible," she snapped. "He shows me his accounts all the time. He has over $2 million. He has a court case for fraud." "Sweetheart, I have the documents right here. Los Angeles County. Case number CV 2024-7891. He stole money from a woman named Rachel Martinez." I heard movement in the background, then Jason's voice asking what was wrong. Emily's breathing grew fast and uneven. "You're making this up," she cried. "You just can't accept that I've grown up. You can't stand that I don't need you anymore." "Emily, please, just look at the evidence. There are other women: Sarah Chen, Jennifer Walsh. He's done this before. The same story, over and over." Suddenly the phone changed hands. Jason's smooth voice replaced my daughter's sobs. "Mr. Miller, I understand you're worried, but these accusations are completely false. I was cleared of all charges in Los Angeles. The case is still open, Jason. I have the current filings right here." "You've been misled," he countered calmly. "That's outdated information from bitter ex-business partners. Emily knows the truth about my finances." Behind him, I could hear my daughter crying. Jason's tone softened, sliding into manipulation. "Sweetheart, your father is trying to sabotage our happiness. Some parents can't let go." "Let me talk to Emily," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. "She's too upset right now. Your false accusations have hurt her deeply." Then Emily's voice broke through, shrill and full of pain. "How could you do this to me, Dad? How could you lie about Jason just to ruin my wedding?" "I'm not lying. There are photos of him with other women, engagement rings identical to yours." "Enough," she shouted. "You can't accept that I found someone who loves me for who I am, not who you want me to be." "Emily, please," I begged, my voice breaking. "Just look at the evidence before you marry him. I'm sending everything to your email right now. Don't come to my wedding. I mean it. You've chosen lies over your daughter's happiness." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, the evidence scattered around me like the wreckage of a relationship nearly 3 decades in the making. Outside my hotel window, couples strolled hand in hand toward Valentine's brunches, oblivious to the war being fought in room 412. The email I had promised to send remained unsent, my finger frozen above the keyboard. Jason had won this round, twisting my protection into persecution, my love into control. But fathers don't give up easily. 1 month dragged by after that call. 31 days of pacing my Brooklyn apartment like a ghost. The folders of evidence sat untouched on the kitchen table, their manila covers stained with coffee rings and the breath of sleepless nights. Every morning began the same, staring at Emily's contact photo until my eyes blurred, drafting letters that began with "Dear Emily" and ended crumpled in the trash. Claire's photo on the mantel seemed to watch me as I opened Jason's court filings for the 100th time. Maybe I'd been too quick to judge. The internet lies, doesn't it? Photos can be doctored. Records misunderstood. Maybe I was just too suspicious. She's a grown woman, I whispered to the empty apartment. My neighbors had noticed the change. Mrs. Patterson from downstairs left worried voicemails about how thin I looked. Even the mailman asked if I'd been away, pointing out the pile of unopened envelopes. My doctor's office called about a missed appointment I didn't even remember scheduling. But today was different. March 14th. Tomorrow my daughter would marry Jason Hart, with or without me. I picked up Claire's silver frame, running my thumb across her smile. "What would you do?" I asked her. Her gentle eyes seemed to answer. Sometimes love means letting go. Maybe the documents were fake. Maybe those women had lied. Maybe Jason truly loved Emily, and my jealousy had poisoned my judgment. What father finds it easy to hand his daughter over to another man? By noon, I made my decision. I would attend the wedding. I would bless their union. I would try to repair what I had broken. The jewelry store on Fifth Avenue welcomed me like an old memory. 30 years earlier I had bought Claire's ring there. This time, I chose a vintage Cartier necklace, diamonds catching the light like captive stars. The saleswoman wrapped it in ivory silk with a card that read simply, "For my daughter on her wedding day. All my love, Dad." At JFK, I sat with the gift balanced on my lap, rehearsing the apology I had memorized. I would tell Emily I had been wrong. That Jason seemed like a good man. That all I wanted was her happiness. The plane rose into the dusk, carrying me toward reconciliation. Below, New York's lights dimmed like fading embers. I closed my eyes and pictured tomorrow's wedding as a beginning instead of an ending. Maybe fathers can learn to trust their daughters' choices, even when those choices terrify them. The Waldorf Astoria in New York loomed ahead of me like some grand wedding cake carved from marble and glass, its facade draped with elegant banners announcing the Miller Hart celebration. I stepped out of the taxi, clutching Emily's gift, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I tugged at the lapels of my navy suit, the same one I'd worn when I walked her across the stage at her college graduation. Guests streamed toward the entrance in silk dresses and crisp suits, their chatter mixing with the sound of a string quartet warming up inside. I recognized a few faces, Emily's old college roommate, my brother Thomas who had flown in from Boston, neighbors from our old place in Queens. And then I froze. There it was. My own face stared back at me from an ornate easel, blown up in black and white. Beneath it, in elegant calligraphy, words that struck like a physical blow. Entry forbidden. Giles Miller, by request of the bride and groom. The gift box slipped in my fingers, nearly falling. Guests slowed as they passed, their eyes darting between me and the poster before hurrying along, their whispers cutting like tiny blades. A few gave me pitying looks, people who had known me for years, who had come to Emily's birthdays, her graduations. Now they saw me marked as the father unworthy of his own daughter's wedding. "Excuse me, sir, you're not expected here." A security guard appeared beside me, polite but firm. His name tag read Martinez. Maybe he had daughters too. This is my daughter's wedding," I muttered, the words catching in my throat. "I'm sorry," Martinez said gently, his hand brushing my elbow. "But the instructions are clear." The couple was very specific. Through the glass doors I could see the reception hall, drenched in white roses cascading from crystal stands, tables set with fine china that probably cost more than my rent. My $50,000 at work, building a dream I wasn't allowed to see. I crouched and set the Cartier box carefully against the easel beneath my own photo, the ivory silk wrapping almost glowing against the marble floor. The necklace would shimmer on Emily's neck someday, whenever she decided to open it. "Now I understand, Jason," I whispered. "Now I understand everything." Martinez shifted uneasily, maybe catching something dangerous in my tone. But I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too small for this. This was humiliation, crafted carefully to break me in front of everyone. Jason hadn't just taken my daughter, he'd branded me, ensuring the whole world would see me as the father too toxic to attend his only child's wedding. I straightened my tie and nodded at the guard. "Could you call me a taxi, please? I need to get downtown, to Chase Bank, before they close." Relief flickered across his face. "Of course, sir. Right away." As I waited for the cab, I looked once more at my own face staring back from the easel. The man in that photograph had still believed his daughter might forgive him. That man had been a fool. Now he knew better. The taxi dropped me at Chase Bank's downtown Manhattan branch at exactly 4:30 p.m., the late sun throwing long shadows across its granite facade. Inside, a skeleton crew moved with the sluggish rhythm of people counting down the minutes to closing. I approached the customer service desk with deliberate calm, the same composure I'd once used to close million-dollar real estate deals. The young banker looked up from her screen, her name tag reading Jessica. "Good afternoon. How can I help you today?" I placed my license and account documents on the counter. "I need to cancel a check. Immediately." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Of course, sir. I'll need the check number and amount." Check number 2847. $50,000. Made out to Jason Hart. I spelled it slowly, watching her type. "Sir," she said carefully, "if this check has already been submitted, stopping it may cause problems for the recipient." Her voice carried the cautious tone of someone used to family feuds spilling into finances. "That's exactly what I'm hoping for," I replied evenly. A flicker of understanding crossed her face. She'd seen this before: betrayed business partners, bitter divorces, money tangled in heartbreak. Without another word, she pulled out the stop payment forms. "There's a $35 fee, and the cancellation takes effect immediately. Any attempt to deposit the check will be declined." Perfect. I signed the forms with the same steady hand I had used when I'd written Jason's check in the first place. The irony wasn't lost on me. "The stop payment is active," Jessica said, sliding the receipt and confirmation across the counter with professional precision. She knew that sometimes, revenge came not in anger, but in paperwork. I folded the receipt carefully and tucked it into my wallet, right beside a photo of Emily at her college graduation. Somewhere across the city, Jason was likely reviewing final wedding details, certain his vendors would be paid, certain his scheme would end in triumph. By now, the ceremony had probably begun, Emily walking down the aisle in whatever gown Jason had persuaded her to buy, surrounded by guests who had all seen my face on that humiliating poster. A string quartet would be playing, a photographer capturing smiles and embraces. But in a few hours, when the caterers demanded payment and the florists wanted their checks, Jason would discover that his magic well of money had run dry. The man who lived by exploiting others' finances was about to find out what it felt like when the game turned on him. "Will there be anything else today, Mr. Miller?" Jessica asked. "No, thank you. You've been very helpful." I stepped out of the bank into the golden New York afternoon, the confirmation slip in my pocket like a loaded weapon. Behind me, the system had already updated. Check 2847 marked void, preparing to cut Jason down in front of every vendor and every guest at his stolen wedding. The taxi ride back to my hotel was quiet, a silence heavy with satisfaction. Sometimes the sharpest revenge was simply pulling away the floorboards beneath another man's lies. 2 hours later, I sat in my room overlooking Manhattan, the skyline twinkling like spilled diamonds. My confirmation receipt rested in my wallet, a hidden trigger. Across town, the Waldorf Astoria's ballroom would be glowing with candles, the quartet playing Pachelbel's canon, Emily floating across marble floors in the dress Jason had chosen. The thought should have broken me. Instead, I felt nothing but ice. My phone buzzed. A message from my brother Thomas. Beautiful ceremony. Wish you were here. Another ping. Payment terminal acting up. Very strange. This one came from a number I didn't know. Probably a vendor. Then the third. Jason looks like he's seen a ghost. I smiled. At that moment, Jason would be facing the catering manager, trying to authorize dinner service, sliding out the black Amex card he'd once flashed so smugly. And the harsh electronic beep of declined would slice through the ballroom. Mr. Hart, we need immediate payment before we can serve the main course, the manager would say, polite but firm. Jason would try again, blaming technical errors, asking them to run it manually. When that failed, he'd pull out backup cards, one after another, all maxed out from past cons. Each rejection would echo like a gunshot. There must be a mistake, he'd insist, sweat beading along his brow despite the ballroom's careful air conditioning. By now, the musicians would have stopped playing, their invoices unpaid. The photographer would be packing gear, explaining that contracts required settlement. Even the florist would quietly reclaim centerpieces, unwilling to leave thousands of dollars in blooms behind. Jason, what's happening? Why is everyone leaving? Emily's voice would tremble, panic bleeding through confusion. Guests would notice, whispers swelling into a storm as vendors dismantled the fairy tale wedding before their eyes. Social media would shift from polished posts to shaky videos of chaos. Your father did this. Jason's voice would rise, desperation cracking through his practiced charm. He ruined our wedding. But I wasn't there to see his collapse. I was 3,000 miles away, room service coffee cooling on the nightstand, watching my phone light up with frantic calls from Jason's number. Again and again. Dozens of times. I let them all go to voicemail. 73 missed calls. I counted twice, the red badge growing larger each time. Jason's number filled the list, but in between his attempts appeared Emily's face, her bright contact photo flashing like a distress beacon. The voicemails told the story I had engineered but would never see in person. The first one, time-stamped 7:15 p.m., still carried Jason's polished tone. Mr. Miller, there seems to be a technical issue with the banking system. If you could call me back. By message 15, the mask was already slipping. Sir, I need you to contact the bank immediately. This is extremely urgent. By message 37, Jason's tone was raw with panic. Please, Mr. Miller, the wedding is falling apart. There's been some terrible mistake. I poured myself a scotch from the minibar and settled into the leather chair by the window. Manhattan's skyline glittered below me, while across the country, Jason's carefully built world collapsed in real time. The voicemails grew increasingly frantic. I could hear the chaos behind him. Vendors arguing, guests murmuring, the hollow echoes of a ballroom being stripped bare. His smooth confidence crumbled into begging, then threats, and finally, confession. I know what you think happened, but I can explain. The money. Yes, I needed help, but I was going to pay you back. Please, your daughter is crying. Then came message 68. It wasn't Jason's voice this time, it was Emily's. Fragile. Broken. Dad, please come back. Jason confessed everything. The sound of her tears cut deeper than any victory I'd imagined. I set my glass down, staring at the phone, my chest tight with unexpected pain. The 74th call came at 9:43 p.m. This time, I answered. Dad. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. Everything. What exactly did he tell you? About the money, about the debts, about the other women. Each word sounded like broken glass. You were right about everything, she admitted. The court cases, the lies. All of it. In the background, I heard Jason's voice, high and desperate. She doesn't understand. I love her. The money doesn't matter. I'll come back to New York, I said evenly. But I won't pay for anything else. After the humiliation, the photo, everything. I'm not writing another check. Understood, Dad, Emily whispered. Just, please be here. I need you. Pack your things, sweetheart. We'll figure it out tomorrow. After we hung up, I booked the red-eye flight. Outside my window, New York slept peacefully, unaware that 3,000 miles away, justice had finally found Jason Hart. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone reveal who they really are when the pressure is too much to bear. 3 months later, Brooklyn's sidewalks shimmered with summer heat when I heard familiar footsteps on the stairs. Through the peephole, I saw Emily, 2 worn suitcases at her sides, her face thinner but more determined than I'd seen in over a year. I opened the door before she could knock. Dad, forgive me. You were right about everything. The words spilled out as she collapsed into my arms, the same way she had at 7 years old after falling off her bike. Sweetheart, you're my daughter. We'll get through this together. I guided her to the couch, the same leather sofa where this nightmare had begun months earlier with that first video call. Everything looked different now. The evidence folders were gone, handed over to the FBI. But Claire's photo still watched from the mantel. He took almost everything, Emily said, her voice trembling. My house, my savings, even Grandma's jewelry. After the wedding collapsed, he got desperate. He forged my signature, drained accounts I didn't even know he'd found. The TV hummed in the background. I'd been half listening to the evening news. Then Jason's face filled the screen, not the polished headshot from his fake company profiles, but a mugshot. His hair was messy, his practiced smile replaced by a hollow stare. Jason Hart arrested for large-scale fraud, the anchor said coolly. Federal investigators report he targeted wealthy families through romantic relationships, stealing over $2 million across multiple states. Emily looked from the TV to me, her eyes wide. They called me yesterday. I'm not his only victim, am I? Rachel Martinez. Sarah Chen. Jennifer Walsh, I said quietly, naming the women whose photos I had once spread across a hotel desk. You weren't his first. But you'll be his last. The broadcast continued, laying out details that confirmed everything I had feared. Multiple identities, forged investment documents, a pattern of charming women before systematically draining their lives. Jason will answer for this, I told her. Justice will be restored. Emily leaned against me, tears streaking her face. I testified before the grand jury last week. He's looking at 15 to 20 years. Outside, Brooklyn moved to its familiar rhythm. Families finishing dinner, kids doing homework, people living the kind of simple, honest lives I had once envied. What now? Emily asked softly. I looked around my apartment, the space that had carried me through the darkest storm of my life. Then I looked at my daughter. Older, wiser, scarred, but unbroken. Now, I said, we rebuild. Together. Claire's photograph seemed to smile down from the mantel. Sometimes protecting the people you love means making choices they hate you for. But love endures. Truth surfaces. And justice, when it comes, is sweeter than revenge.